The winter of 1941 settled over Warsaw like a heavy shroud, muffling even the smallest joys. Every lamp glow seemed subdued, every laugh, every secret shared in low voices, threatened by the ever-present shadow of occupation. Yet in the midst of fear and deprivation, love, quiet, tenacious, grew between two souls who should never have met. Jakub, a young Jewish schoolteacher, moved through the city with wariness etched into every line of his face. He wore a threadbare overcoat and kept his identification papers tucked inside a worn book, as if words might still protect him. The world had turned upside down so quickly. His classroom shuttered, his students scattered or missing, his parents gone, swept away in a midnight raid that still haunted his dreams. He lived now in the ghetto, teaching children in secret, trying to preserve a sense of wonder against the greyness that threatened to swallow them all. Emilia, a nurse at the hospital on the Aryan side, was the daughter of a railway worker and a seamstress. She'd grown up in the same neighborhoods as Jakub, though their lives had run in parallel, never crossing, until the war forced the impossible. Emilia, tall and determined, with a braid the color of honey, wore her Red Cross armband like a shield. She mended wounds, comforted the dying, and delivered news, good and bad, to families torn by the violence. She learned to steel her heart, though it sometimes broke anyway. Their paths crossed one frozen night in December, when Emilia was sent on an errand into the ghetto with medical supplies. It was forbidden, but the hospital director had insisted, and so she went, her breath fogging in the cold, her pulse drumming in her ears. Jakub intercepted her at the checkpoint, suspicion and hope mingling in his eyes as he recognized a face from the old world, before everything fractured. They exchanged only a handful of words, about the supplies, about the children who needed them, but something lingered in their glances, a flicker of shared understanding. Over the following weeks, Emilia found reasons to return, always under the pretext of delivering bandages or medicine. Jakub, in turn, began to look for her, his days brightened by the prospect of a brief whispered conversation in the shadows. The city, meanwhile, tightened around them. Rations dwindled, and rumors of deportations grew. Sometimes Jakub would walk Emilia back to the edge of the ghetto, their footsteps echoing in streets emptied by curfew. Under the pale glow of the moon, they spoke of books and music, of favorite childhood haunts by the Vistula River, of the world they remembered. One evening, as snow fell in silent, feathery drifts, Jakub offered Emilia a folded sheet of paper, a poem he had written for her. She pressed it to her heart, tears glistening in her eyes. "If only we had met before," she whispered, her voice trembling with longing and regret. Before had become a sacred word, a talisman against the darkness. But before was gone, and after was uncertain. Still, they clung to their moments together, knowing that every meeting was a risk. The day came when the ghetto was sealed tighter than ever. Emilia's visits ceased, and Jakub's hope dimmed. Then one morning he was seized in a roundup, herded into a cattle car with hundreds of others, destination unknown. He clung to the memory of Emilia's touch, the warmth of her gaze, as the train rattled eastward. Emilia learned of Jakub's disappearance weeks later, through whispers in the hospital corridors. She walked the city in a daze, searching faces in the crowds, haunted by the thought that she might never see him again. But she refused to give up. She began working with the resistance, smuggling food and medicine into the camps, passing coded messages in the seams of uniforms. Jakub's world became a blur of mud and barbed wire, his days marked by hunger and exhaustion. He was sent to a labor camp near Lublin, where survival depended on luck as much as strength. He thought often of Emilia, her laughter, the hope she had kindled in him. At night, he recited her poem to himself, each word a lifeline. Months passed. Seasons changed. Sometimes there were rumors of Allied advances, of liberation, but hope was a dangerous thing. Jakub befriended a fellow prisoner, Marek, and together they shared scraps of bread and fragments of memory, reminding each other that life existed beyond the wire. One day, a package arrived, smuggled in through the laundry. Inside, wrapped in linen, was a letter addressed to Jakub in Emilia's careful script. His hands shook as he read her words, full of longing and defiance. She told him of her efforts, of the resistance, of her undying belief that they would see each other again. She urged him to survive, to hold on for her sake. Jakub wept, tears of grief and hope mingled on his cheeks. He shared the letter with Marek, who said quietly, "Your love is stronger than any fence they can build." The letter became Jakub's most treasured possession. He read it again and again, drawing strength from Emilia's courage. The memory of her smile sustained him through sickness, beatings, and the endless monotony of work. In the spring of 1944, the camp was liberated by the advancing Red Army. Jakub, emaciated but alive, staggered into the sunlight, blinking at a world he no longer recognized. He was free, but the cost had been immense. Marek did not survive, and many others had vanished into the night. Jakub made his way back to Warsaw, a city now battered and broken, its streets littered with rubble, its people hollow-eyed and wary. He searched for Emilia at the hospital, but she was gone. He left messages with neighbors, with former colleagues, hoping she would find a way back to him. Emilia, meanwhile, had been forced to flee the city as the resistance network was uncovered. She traveled under an assumed name, moving from village to village, assisting wounded partisans, always fearing discovery. She carried Jakub's poem with her, folded and refolded until the paper was as soft as cloth. Years passed, 3 long, grinding years of uncertainty. The war ended, but peace brought no easy answers. Poland was a country in ruins, its borders redrawn, its people scattered. Jakub found work as a translator for a relief organization, helping refugees find lost family members. He scoured lists, wrote letters, visited Red Cross offices, always searching for Emilia. He never stopped believing that she was alive. Sometimes, in the quiet of the night, he imagined her voice, the feel of her hand in his. The world urged him to move on, to let go, but he could not. He had survived for her. He would wait as long as it took. Emilia, too, searched. She returned to Warsaw when it was safe, asking after Jakub at the hospital, in the ghetto ruins, at the school where he once taught. The city was a labyrinth of ghosts. Every street corner held memories, every face a possible clue. One autumn day in 1948, a letter arrived at the relief office where Jakub worked. It was addressed simply, "To Jakub Zielinski, for whom I still wait." His heart hammered as he tore it open, recognizing the slant of Emilia's handwriting. She was alive. She would be in the city square at noon on Sunday if he still wished to see her. Jakub dressed carefully that morning, smoothing his hair, buttoning his borrowed jacket. He arrived early, nerves jangling, scanning the crowd for a glimpse of gold in the sunlight. And then, there she was, older, thinner, but unmistakably Emilia. Their eyes met across the square, and for a moment the world fell away. He crossed to her in 3 long strides, and she reached for him, her hands trembling. They stood in silence, drinking each other in, too overwhelmed for words. At last Emilia spoke, her voice thick with emotion. "I never stopped waiting for you." Jakub smiled, tears shining in his eyes. "Nor I for you." They walked together along the riverbank, sharing stories of survival, of those they had lost and those they had found. Their scars were many, but so too was their hope. They spoke of rebuilding, of dreams deferred but not forgotten. In the years that followed, Jakub and Emilia built a new life together. They married in a small ceremony, attended by a handful of friends who understood the price of love in a world torn apart. Emilia returned to nursing, tending to orphans and the wounded. Jakub taught languages, helping others find their way across new borders. They lived simply, cherishing the ordinary joys, shared meals, laughter, walks through the city at dusk. Sometimes, when the past threatened to overwhelm them, they would sit together in silence, holding hands, grateful for the miracle of reunion. Their love, tested by war and separation, became a quiet beacon for others, a reminder that even in the darkest times, the heart can endure. One evening, years later, Emilia found Jakub sitting by the window, gazing at the city lights. She joined him, resting her head on his shoulder. "Do you ever regret waiting?" she asked softly. Jakub squeezed her hand. "Never. Every moment without you was a day less in the life we now share." They watched the city together, its wounds slowly healing, its people moving forward. The war had taken much from them, but it had given too. A love tempered by suffering, made precious by loss. Jakub kept Emilia's letters in a box by their bed, alongside the poem he had written all those years ago. Sometimes, on quiet nights, they would read them together, marveling at the journey that had brought them home to each other. Emilia's hair silvered with time, and Jakub's hands grew stiff with age, but their love remained steadfast. They spoke often of the friends they had lost, the children they had taught, the hope they had carried through the darkness. They vowed never to forget, and to teach those who came after that love could outlast even the greatest trials. On the anniversary of their reunion, they returned to the city square where they had found each other. The world had changed, but the square remained, a witness to their story. They stood hand in hand, hearts full, knowing that against all odds, their love had survived. In the end, it was not grand gestures or declarations that defined them, but small acts of courage, letters smuggled through danger, promises whispered in the night, the simple act of waiting for someone you loved. Their story became a quiet legend among those who knew them, a reminder that even in the ruins, the seeds of hope could take root and bloom. And so Jakub and Emilia's love endured, a testament to resilience, to the power of faith and memory, to the belief that even in a world shattered by war, the heart remembers what is most true. Their lives bore the scars of history, but their spirits remained unbroken, joined forever by the simple, unwavering promise, "I will wait for you."